Today is March 1st, 2018. My name is Blair Williams, and I'm here today with Shirley Heishman. So thank you, Shirley, for agreeing to talk with me today. So to start with, I'll simply ask, how does your family come to live in Cumberland County?
Well, my mom and dad were farmers, lived on the Bloserville Road, and there was 11 children. And anyhow, they used horses and things, but I don't remember that because I was one of the younger ones. And they had tractors when I came along, but we did everything by hand. I can remember when I was young, two of my brothers would go out and cut the corn off, and my other brother and I would carry it and throw it in rows, and then they would shock it. And then after it was all, that was all done. And then we'd hear the bell ringing at the school. We lived a little piece from Bloserville. And then he'd get us in the truck and run us younger kids into school. And then we did all the milking, and we did everything by hand. There was no milkers or anything. And the same way with all the crops and everything, the hay. You know, you had a baler and pulled the hay on the wagon, took it. We did everything by hand. We hoed the corn. And but you know, we never felt as though it was work. It was always fun because there was a group of us, and we always made fun out of it. So,
well, I'll just ask to clarify. What were your parents' names?
John and Edna Finkenbinder.
Okay.
And my dad was in the First World War, and he was shot pretty bad, and it ruined his lungs, and so he couldn't work. So all the kids, us kids, did work. And then when I went to high school, when I come home in the bus, he'd be standing at the gate telling us to get our clothes changed and what we were supposed to get out and do. And the kids did all the work. I don't remember he had asthma, and because his lungs were messed up, he was only 67 when he died because his lungs were so bad. But all the kids were gone except me and my younger brother when Daddy died. And no, I was married 6 months when he died. And so anyhow, went from there. I said, I'll never be a farmer. I didn't like farming. I married a farmer. I thought he was a trucker because he hauled milk. And he had milk route. And then his dad farmed, so he farmed for his dad. And so anyhow, we hauled milk in cans. That's when you went around, and then he bought another route. So I had, my girl was, I don't know, 6 months old or something. So anyhow, he would go pick up the one route, and then I would meet him with the other truck, and then he'd go pick up the next route, and then we'd both take the trucks and go to Shippensburg. At that time, you took the cans to Shippensburg and unloaded them. So we did that. Well, then he decided to sell the milk route. A guy came and wanted to buy it. So he sold it, and we paid our place off. We had bought a little farm, and we paid the place off. So then, but when he bought the milk route, a water route came with it too. He bought it from Paul Spar. And how he got into it, when he was in high school, Paul asked him to drive for him and help him because he had a bad back. And I think that only lasted a year. And his back was so bad, so Don bought the milk route, and a water route came with it. Now, at that time, the water route didn't amount to too much. It was just cisterns everywhere. But then as the years went on, they got to putting the swimming pools in. People got to putting, and we got that busy that, I hauled water because he was helping his dad farming. So then he got me in, I drove school bus first. The guy came along and wanted a bus driver, so I drove the school bus. And then he said, well, if you can drive the bus, why can't you haul water? So I ended up hauling water. So then when my boys got old enough, they took over helping him haul the water. I had 2 sons and a daughter, and the daughter had a little girl, and I babysat her, and the boys took over the trucking, helped, you know. So he hauled water for 45 years. And we were really busy because they put so many pools in. Some days we were running 3 trucks, 4,000 gallon trucks a day to keep up with hauling the water. Well, then we decided to build the ball field because the boys would go, they played ball with the church, and they come home complaining they didn't have no place to play. So he said, well, we'll build a ball field. So we were raising cattle at the time and hogs. At one time we had 60 sows, and we would sell the pigs when they get so old. And then we did away with the sows, and we turned all into just raising the pigs, buying pigs and raising them up to sell. So we did that for a long time. And then when it came around about this ball field, he said, well, we'll just build your ball field. So anyhow, we took our ground and built and bought some more off of the neighbor and put the 4 softball fields in. And that really turned out to be a real good thing to do. So over our lives, we had a lot always. We sold the water out because we had the whey route in Shippensburg. They put a cheese factory in up at Shippensburg, and some guy told Don that they were taking bids on hauling the whey out. So he went and bid on it. And because he had the trucks and everything that he could go right away, he got the bid to haul the whey out of the cheese plant. So he was hauling whey out of the cheese plant. We were hauling water. He was farming. And then we put this ball field in. Well, we'd be up at midnight every night still working, you know, and I was the one that took all the phone calls and had to set up all the routes of where they were going, how much, and all that. And I run the concession stand. And it just got that it was being too much. So anyhow, we said, well, let's sell something. So my older son wanted to, at one time, both the boys were in business with him. Well, then the one quit. So that left him and the one son. And this son said, well, the only way I'll buy the business, I want the whey route, which Don didn't want to sell. He said, okay. So we sold the water route to a neighbor. And then my son took over the whey route. And so he only had it, I don't know, several years. And he turned around selling it because he got in the windshield washer fluid business. And he's now running 2 trucks every day hauling that. And so it just seemed like we always had a business going. Mm-hmm. And so then we ran the ball field for 20 years. And then my husband said he was getting tired of it, and my grandson wanted to take over. So we left him, and I did not want to quit the concession stand because I had made a whole group of new people. Mm-hmm. I loved it. I went out there and worked every day. I had a life. I had something to go to. So, but anyhow, he made up his mind to give it to the grandson. Now, he don't own it. We own it. He pays rent to run it. But anyhow, he's running the ball field now. So, that's about the story of everything, you know. What else did you want to know?
Well, here, just a couple of follow-up questions then. What was this? How many acres was the farm when you were growing up?
It was a little over 100 acres. I forget how much, but it was a little over 100 acres. And we did everything by hand, and my dad was very strict.
I was going to say, that's a very big farm to do everything by hand.
We did, and he was very strict, and there was not one weed allowed in any of the fields. So he made us kids pull weeds. Yeah. So I'll never forget when the Bloserville Fair was. We pulled weeds, and we had to take them in and show them to our dad, and he'd give us a penny a weed. And that was our money to go to the fair. So it was a lot of work. But I don't know, you just did it. You were that's what I said about a lot of kids today. I ain't doing that, I'm not doing that, you know. We didn't even question. When your parents said to do something, you did it. We never questioned. And yeah, it was a lot of work. We were taught to work, every one of us, but then I taught my kids how to work too, so it worked out real good.
let's see, 100 acres, mainly for dairy production, or?
We only had, back then, because you milked them by hand and stuff, we didn't have that many cattle. I honestly forget what we had, if we had maybe 15 or something at the most. I don't remember. But then he had hogs. We butchered every year. And then my mom had ducks and chickens and stuff. And we had a great big garden. So, we did our own butchering and beef and hogs, and had our own garden. So you didn't have to go to the store for much. You just, and I was so used to that when I got married. To this day, I still like to can my own meat. And, and bake bread, and we were raised in doing that. So, you just keep it going.
Yeah, you said you didn't want to marry a farmer.
I said I would never marry a farmer. I hated farming because, just like on Sundays, you know how you are with a teenager and you want to go away and do things, and we had to go home and go to the barn and milk. And I said, I'll never marry a farmer. And then we couldn't get in anything at school because you had to go home and after school and do the work.
So what was the main, I guess, purpose of the farm then? Was it to grow corn, or was it just sort of a...
No, we had corn and grain and hay. Yeah.
Were you selling that, or was that mainly to feed the animals on the farm?
He kept it mainly, I think it was mainly to feed our own animals. But he probably sold some too, I don't remember a whole lot, but he probably sold some because we'd have had more than. But then we had a lot of animals at that time too, so maybe he just kept it for his animals. But we had good farmland. It was slate land, but it was still good,
So your father was mainly the person, he wasn't doing the actual work, but he was doing a lot of the business behind it?
They said that that's why Daddy bought a farm, because they lived in just a house. But when they had all these kids, he thought they needed something to do. So he bought the farm. And they said that's why he bought the farm, to raise the kids on a farm. And, to me, that's a good thing. I mean, we hated it because we had to work all the time.
Yeah.
But once you get older, you realize that's about the best thing you can do, because some of the kids nowadays get in a lot of trouble because they don't have nothing to do.
Do you know what your father did before he bought the farm, or?
He worked, I can remember him working for, I guess it was for the state. Okay. Well, he was a good builder too. He helped to build houses and things. He was a carpenter. But then I can remember back then you had great big snows, and he helped, and the men worked by hand with shovels to clear the snow away back then. And I can remember him in the summertime, a group of men, they would use them mowing sizes to go along the road and mow the weeds down. They didn't have equipment back then. So he helped to work on the road.
Was that a paid job from the state, or was that sort of like every citizen was responsible for taking care of?
No, I think it was the state. that he sort of worked for. Now I can remember him working when I was young, but then as I got older, he got sicker, and he couldn't breathe was his problem, and. But I can remember when I was young how he'd be out along the road helping.
Now, did he ever tell you stories of his experience in World War I?
No, and I wish he would have. I think he would have liked to, but kids, you don't want to. Yeah. And but he was in the First World War, and then my brother was in the Second World War, and he was shot, and he was missing in action for a week. And they said when he went to the war, Daddy really broke down because he knew what he was going to have to go through. And but anyhow, they got him and had him in the hospitals and everything. And in time, he moved to Florida. He said the climate, the warm weather was better for him because he hurt all the time.
Yeah.
But he's 95 now.
Wow.
And
what's his name?
Glenn Finkenbinder.
Okay.
Glen Fink and Binder.
Which theater of the war did he serve in? Do you remember?
I know it was in the Second World War.
But what, Pacific or Europe or?
I don't know.
No.
No, I don't know. That's my dad and three of my brothers were on the service.
Okay.
And that's him up there, but I don't remember. See, I was only 1 year old when he went to the service.
Okay.
My brother. So I don't remember much about it.
And I mean, at that point, you probably don't remember like rationing or anything like that either.
No, my sisters talk about when the Depression was, and you got stamps for so much food and stuff, and they said that Daddy was the kind that did never accept charity.
Yeah.
And he got a lot of food stamps and stuff because he had such a large family, but he gave them out to the neighbors because he had supplies of our own, and they said that he had $1,000 in the bank, and that lasted until this got over. That then he was back at work, making money again. But that's what they said, and I know he didn't collect any money for, getting shot or getting too much gas in the service, and because my mom didn't collect anything. But they said that Daddy would never accept charity. He always felt if you can do it on your own, you should do it. And they said that's what he always did. So, but I wish Daddy died when he was 67. I was only 20. And I wish I would ask him a lot more questions about it. Because he used to say about going out west and doing stuff. And I have 2 pictures here. I know a gentleman in Newville that went to war with my dad. He had pictures of the ship that they went overseas on.
Oh, wow.
And here my brother happened to have the tickets that my dad had to get on this ship. So I have them. So I have those 2 pictures. And I was always grateful for that he gave them to me.
So what was it like going to the one-room schoolhouse in Bloserville?
Well, you were a kid and you didn't know any different. Now, we had to walk to school. It was half a mile. We walked, and it was fun because you had all these friends, and in the wintertime, we'd take our sleds, and back then, the neighbor man, he would allow us to go in his fields and sled down over the hills, and he had a pond that we went ice skating on, and we went to this one-room schoolhouse, and then eventually they sort of split it in half, that 1 through 4 was on one side, and then the rest was on the other side. And
different teachers?
Yeah, 2 different teachers.
Okay.
And I went to the high school the first year they opened up the new high school. I happened to go that year. Yeah. So that was a whole new experience too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we cleaned out the old school and the books and everything, and but the one-room schoolhouses were so different, than these kids that didn't have them. Because I said, man, back then we did all the cleaning and anything the teacher wanted, the kids did it for, and we had this elderly lady, and I think we were little brats because. If it would start snowing a little, Mrs. Oak, you better go home because it's going to really come down and you're not going to be able to get home. And she was old and they'd scare her and she'd say, okay, so she'd shut the school down and she'd go home. and the kids did that. And then they'd go in. Now, I didn't do this, but they did it. But they would go in and soap the windows for Halloween. And then the next day they come to school and say, we better go out and wash the windows because that way they get out of school. And they go out and wash the windows, and but I like school.
Yeah. And
back then, you learned poems and stuff like that, and man, I was good at that. I always liked, studying for the poems and stuff.
Can you still remember any of them?
No, I don't.
No,
no I don't. I don't remember them.
So you said you had a half-mile walk to school.
Mm-hmm.
How much has that landscape changed, or has it at all over the?
Well, the only kids that walk to school nowadays are the ones that live in Newville.
Well, I mean, so so from the farm that you grew up on to the school in Bloserville, has the landscape changed at all? Like, would you be able to, like, if you still had that school, would you be able to walk there still, or?
Oh yeah, but now they changed it into a church.
Okay.
They made the school into a church, but you can walk from our farm where we farmed. You could, yeah.
So the landscape is still relatively.
It's the same. It's the same. Blosersville's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have the farmhouse in there, and everything's pretty much the same as when I was growing up. Yeah. Mhm.
How often did your family come to Newville, or was there another town that you're kind of associated with?
Hey, when we were kids, we never went anywhere. The only and my mom and dad. My dad got the groceries. I don't remember my mom going away when we were growing up. Dad got the groceries and stuff, and Mom didn't even get to go away. And I can remember we never had snacks and stuff, like you do today.
Yeah.
And I can remember when we would really work hard for a day. Dad would go to the store and bring home a gallon of ice cream and a snack, and we thought, boy, that was just wonderful,
But it went pretty quickly too with 11 kids.
It sure did. Well, see, there wasn't 11 there
Okay.
all the time because a couple of the older ones were gone. As a matter of fact, my mother had a baby the same time my older sister had a baby, 2 months apart. So, she's 97 and she still lives by herself and does everything. They're all living except a brother and a sister have passed away. But the rest are all living. And I'm next to the youngest, and I'm 76 years old.
Wow.
So
got some years ahead of you then.
Yeah, I don't know. Working didn't hurt us at all.
Yeah.
But now a couple of my sisters, they were lucky. They didn't have to go out and work in the fields or the barn.
Mm-hmm.
But it just happened that a couple of us left.
Did your mother work a lot too, like in her own garden, or was she out in the field?
My mom was working all the time.
Yeah.
Yep. With all the kids, she had a lot of baking and cooking to do. And my mom milked. I can remember her milking with a baby, holding a baby on her lap. Yeah. They said she took the kids right along to the barn. Well, then, I don't know what year it was, my mother had a stroke. And then she didn't go out to the barn after that. But I never remember my dad going to the barn. But my mom did. She milked. Mm-hmm.
You said your mother baked. I'm guessing she was also the cook in the family, or?
She did everything. Oh, and they said when the war was that my mom made, now see, I don't remember this, but she made all kinds of baby clothes and stuff and sold it to make money. And she attended market in Carlisle, they said. But see, I was too little. I don't remember any of that. My older sister told me about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Mom attended market and that she made a lot of baby clothes and sold back then. She could really crochet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if there's any sort of baked good or anything that she cooked that really stands out in your mind.
Not really. We had our own sugar cured meat and everything, and had a smokehouse. And when I got married, we did too. We built a smokehouse and killed our own hogs and sugar cured our own meat, and then we would kill a whole hog and sell it out as sausage and stuff. Yeah, but
that was good.
Yeah, but that's been back 20 years or more ago. Before we built the ball fields. But yeah, mom worked really hard because she had to do everything by hand too.
Yeah. Did she bake any sort of Pennsylvania Dutch goods like shoe fly pie?
Oh yeah, she baked all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, shoe fly pie, any kind of pies she made, and she baked her own bread. And I wish I had that today. She had a great big dough tree, a great big one, because there was so many.
Yeah.
And she had a great big dough tree that she mixed her bread up in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then she never had an electric stove. All she had was the cook stove, and they didn't get an electric stove till after I was married, and that was, well, I guess Daddy was still living, but I was only married 2 years, I think, when Daddy died.
Okay.
But then but then after she died, my brother was going to keep the farm going, and then they drafted him. And he said, well, he was going to be there for Mom and farm, and they said no, couldn't do that. So they built Mom a house on the end of the farm and sold the farm.
Was this which war was this that he was drafted in?
Well, this wasn't a war then.
Okay.
They didn't have a war, but they were still drafting guys. Is that when Roy would have been? But he didn't go to war. What happened, they drafted him, and as soon as they did that, he went and joined the National Guards.
Okay.
So he was in the National Guards instead of going in the Army.
To Korea.
Yeah. So then they built a small house for Mom out at the end of the farm. And she lived till she was 88 years old. So, she did good. But, so anyhow, so then I had 3 children, and I drove a school bus at one time.
Yep.
And I worked at Mason's on the night shift at one time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then I hauled water.
Yeah.
And besides the farming, so I had plenty to do. I had a big garden, when the kids, after we built the ball field, I sort of did away with the garden because I said, man, I don't have time to, if I want to can something, I bought it. I didn't have time to have a garden.
Now, actually, before I forget, growing up, did your father or did your family own a vehicle?
Okay, yeah, my dad, he owned a pickup truck that I remember. But I have pictures of him that he had one of them old antique Model T Fords.
Yeah.
And when he was young, he got it. And, but see, I don't know when he got rid of it or anything because the older ones remember, but I don't. But he had a Model T Ford. And then what I remember is Daddy had a pickup truck. Well, back then you were allowed to ride on the back of the pickup truck. So all of us kids would jump in the back of the pickup truck to go. You're not allowed to do that anymore, but you were then. And we'd fuss and fuss, take us for a drive, take us for a drive. And so he'd take us up around the brick church. It's not very far, but that was our drive, He'd take us up around the brick church. So, but he had a pickup truck. And then later down the road, he got a car, which my brother talked him into getting that car. And he did have a car then. When I got married, he had a car. Yeah. But it wasn't long after that then till he passed away. So none of my kids ever knew him. And
well, you said that you ended up getting married. I'm wondering, how did you meet your husband?
he was our milkman.
Was he?
Yes, he picked up the milk. Yeah, the milk cans. And one Sunday, I was up at Dublin. Our family had a reunion up there. And him and a couple of other guys came around. He said, well, I see you every day. And I'm like, well, where? And he said, well, I hold your milk. So we got to know each other, but I wasn't allowed to go out then. So I sort of snuck out a little bit. And because every Sunday, a whole gang of us kids would meet at the pond in Bloserville and learn ice skating. So he'd come in there. So that's how I got to know him. You know, he held her milk.
You said, yeah, you didn't know he was a farmer.
No way. I thought he was a trucker. He never, because his dad farmed, but I didn't think he would farm.
Yeah.
Because he was hauling milk and hauling coal and hauling water and doing all of that. And so I figured he was a trucker till after I got married. And then here he's helping his dad all the time. And I'm like, well, I didn't know you were going to be working for your dad. Well, he didn't really pay him. But Don helped him to do everything.
Sure.
You know, and he had the milk route. So that was our income, just the milk route, because I had a baby real soon. We didn't have our own place till he wanted to just stay with his parents, which I didn't want to. But anyhow, then he bought a farm right next to his mom and dad. And so then he bought a little farm. Now, it was only 10 acres, but we raised hogs there and steers.
Where was the farm?
On 233,
Okay.
right next to where the ball field is. The
Sure.
ball field was our farm.
And this is right out, and this is this off 641 or?
No, it's on 233.
233, okay.
South of Newville.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was our farm, you know. But then he farms, and Don still farms at the next door, the guy that owned the sawmill, Rocky. Don still farms that for rent, you know.
That's actually something I ask, it seems like everyone I speak to nowadays. But did you have sort of a local mill that you would take, like a feed mill or?
They had the mill. They had the mill in Newville.
Okay, Laughlin.
And pardon?
Wait, which mill?
What was it called?
Cumberland Valley.
Cumberland Valley.
Cumberland Valley. Okay.
Feed company. Yeah. So we'd go in there and get our hog feed. And then we well, one time we had a guy come around with a grinder truck and do it. Well, then I don't know what happened, but we started going to Newville, and then Don bought his own feed grinder. So then him and Doug, our youngest son, sort of went in business with Don, and so then they mixed their own feed. But we had a lot of hogs at one time.
What is that process like then, sort of raising hogs?
Well, we start out with sows, and then they would have pigs, and then we would raise the pigs. Some of the pigs we would sell at 30 to 60 pounds. Men wanted to buy them at that weight and then fatten them out. And we started doing it that way. And then we decided after a while, well, we would make more money fattening them out than the sows having pigs. So we did away with all the sows. And then we started buying pigs and fattening them out. We had a whole house that would hold 400. And so then we did that. And then I said to him, I don't think we're making enough of money. You know, So we ended up getting rid of the hogs. My son and I said, we don't want them around anymore. We're not making enough of money. Get rid of them. So by gosh, he did. And then after that's when we built the ball fields.
But all this time, you still had the milk route and the water route.
We had, we sold in 62 or something. Anyhow, we had an offer to buy the milk route.
Yep.
So we sold the milk route. But we kept the water route.
Okay.
And he run that for 45 years.
What was the name of? I mean, did the companies or did the routes have different company names, or was it all?
What, the milk routes?
Yeah, and then the water route.
Well, the water route we called it Heishman's Water Hauling
Okay.
because it was our own business. The milk routes. No, it wasn't base lines. It was Don. He owned it himself. It was his milk route. It was Paul Spar's, and Don bought it from Paul Spar. So it was Heishman's, you know, he owned his own milk route. The truck and everything was his responsibility.
And was this mainly a Newville route, or?
Yeah, it was Newville and down around back of Bloserville. A whole lot of back roads down around Bloserville, back in there.
And hauling sort of local dairy, or did you buy the milk from someplace?
No, we would go to the farms and pick up the cans of milk. They had their cans and they had them in water. Mm-hmm. And he'd pick up all the cans of milk and throw them on the truck and take them to the creamery. And then they'd wash the cans, put them back on the truck, and then the next day you'd go again.
Doodle Hurley bought the milk route.
Yeah, Doodle Hurley bought our milk route. Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, did you have a lot of competition, or was it a pretty...
What? In what?
The milk route.
Well...
Because I know in Carlisle we had Kruger's, but I think they were more Carlisle than the West Shore.
Were they picking up milk, or were they delivering milk?
I know they delivered it. Yeah, I don't know. I think they picked it up a little bit
See,
too.
we picked up all the milk from the farmers.
Okay.
And then there was other milk people that delivered milk in bottles.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't do that. We just picked the cans up from the farmer.
And then dropped it off at the Newville.
Took it up at the creamery. No, we went to Shippensburg at that time. We went to Shippensburg. And the milk was graded, depending on the grade of the milk, which creamery you went to. And we went to Shippensburg. And then dumped it up there. Now, and then see, they went to tank trucks, bulk, and did away with all the cans.
And then, so I'm wondering, did you have to then keep track of how much milk you picked up at each farm in order to pay the farmers, or?
We got tickets at the, and then you handed them tickets in, and then they gave a check. We had to give all the farmers their check. Mm-hmm. So then when they paid, they give all the checks to Dawn, and then as you went and picked their milk up that day, you'd give them their check.
And then you got a percentage, or?
We got paid so much for picking it up, so much a can, but see, I don't even, it's been so long ago, I don't remember. But yeah, we got paid so much for hauling their milk. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you sold that, and you said Heishman's water hauling, sort of, it kept escalating in business.
Heishman's water hauling really, but I'll tell you why we had said so much. We had great service. My two boys were trucking and Dawn was trucking. We would run 3 trucks with water. And see, they were putting in a lot of in-ground swimming pools. And when they put them pools in, the company likes to have the water there. And we always had the water there. Even if it was 10, 11 o'clock at night, my boys would still stay out and haul water. They were young.
Yeah.
They didn't have a commitment. And they didn't care how late they'd work. If we were going to really be busy the next day, they'd stay out and finish filling that pool that night. And some pools were pretty big. So we were known well because we gave good service. Mm-hmm. And my job was, and I get phone calls all day long. And then some would, well, I need it within the hour, I need this or that, and then I had to shift guys around and tell them we had two-way radio, we had CBs. And then I would call them and say which one can go here or there or whatever. So I sort of managed the phone. I said, it was no fun because when I mowed the yard, I had to take care of the yard. And when I mowed the yard, I rigged a thing around my head. That one side I had the telephone, the other side I had the CB thing. Because if the guys called me, I'd better answer them right away. So anyhow, we had that, and and that's why I got played out, and I was running the concession stand every night. Mm-hmm. And I said, and I'd get phone calls all evening. And I said to him, I said, why can't we shut it down at a certain time at night? Because I can't do this. And I'd be in at midnight setting up where each guy was going and what they were doing. And so finally he left me put on at 5:30. I put a recording on, I'm sorry, we're closed for the evening. Call back first thing tomorrow morning. So then we started doing that. And that was a lot easier on me. But I'd be on that phone all day long. I might get 50 or more calls a day for water.
Where did you get the water from?
We got it from different bars. One time we got it from Newville, mm-hmm. and Shippensburg and Carlisle and Mount Holly Springs.
And so did you have to negotiate with how much, I guess, per 100 gallons it cost?
They charged us so much, how was that? So much a gallon, I guess, they charged us. Mm-hmm. So much. The nicest one to work with was South Middleton. Mm. I tell you, that guy, now we had to buy a meter and put on, mm-hmm. And everything. But that guy couldn't have treated us any better. And I'll never forget that one summer, it was really dry and they weren't letting anybody haul water. They weren't letting people use water. And he called and he said, you can have all the water you want. And he said, I ain't gonna, because we have it. They got it off of springs. Yeah. And he said, you can have all you want. We ain't shutting you down. You can haul it for pools, whatever you want it for. We don't care. I said, well, you write me up a letter and give me that. Because the cops were stopping us all the time, hauling water. And So they wrote me up a letter and said that, we were allowed to haul water.
Do you remember his name or?
Yeah, it was Bear. I forget his first name, but his last name. Never met the guy. I only met him over the telephone. Called and asked him, if we could get water there, and talked to him and everything. And he set me a price, and we did everything. And I never met the guy. But I tried to treat him good. I got him gift certificates and stuff at Christmas because he was a super, super man. And I doubt if he's in that now.
Yep.
But he was then. His name was Bear, and he was a super guy. And he would have did anything for you, So, but that was the nicest place to get water.
So you got the water from the boroughs or the townships, and then did you mainly work with contractors or
No.
in terms of figuring out who got the water?
Well, the pool companies, a lot of the pool companies got. But we just went by Heishman's water hauling, so we wrote a bill out, gave him a bill, and the guy that was filling the pool paid us. Unless there was another owner. If the owner was supposed to pay us, the pool guy told us who was paying the bill. And so, it's very few we lost, but we lost money, But because there was some that we had problems with. Filled their whole pool and didn't give us a penny.
All right. I'm wondering how much did water go for?
Back then, we were getting $85 a load.
And a load would be
4,000 gallon.
Wow.
Now, for cisterns, if they only took half of that, we charged them half. We didn't try to rip people off. We tried to be fair. Because there was some people that owned cisterns, and they wanted a load of water every week. It run into a lot of money for them. But they always had the money to pay it. And, some cisterns we filled every week. And but we hauled a lot of cisterns. They were the ones that were a nuisance, you might say.
Yeah.
Because the kids and I, Dawn, would be ready to go away in an evening to go to the fair or something. And somebody, I need water right away. Well, he would just say, hey, I'm going to haul water. And that was the end of the going away. So he always put business first, And I think we only lost one customer because of service. And they called on a Sunday and I said, I'm sorry, we don't haul water on Sundays unless it's an emergency for animals or something. If a farmer ran out of water, okay. But anyhow, these people, all they had to do was go out and check their cistern. And I said, we'll bring it Monday morning. We're not waiting until Monday morning. And I said, I'm sorry. And they said, well, then don't bother bringing it anymore. I said, okay. But I remember losing one customer because of that.
What was the service area? Was it mainly sort of eastern Cumberland County, or was it wider than that?
Oh, it was all over. We hauled water for swimming pools clear out to Bedford.
Wow.
What was the name of that housing development? They lived up in the mountain. I forget. South Mountain. It was a housing development. Man, we hauled them a lot of water. They had tanks that they provided. They had people that lived in houses and trailers and stuff, and they provided the water for them. So if it didn't rain, they had to have water trucked in. We hauled them a lot of water. I should remember the name, but I don't. Man, it's been 20 years, But we hauled them an awful lot of water. And if a farmer ran out of water at the farm, we hauled them. Some, I'm trying to think, there was some that we hauled water every day. I know it was a trailer park that they had water problems, and we took them a load of water every day.
So I'm wondering, for Bedford, did you charge more because of the distance then? Okay.
We got that we would charge so much a load and then so much a mileage after we went so many miles.
Yeah.
Then we would charge so much a mile. Nobody ever complained. And, but...
Well, did you have local competition, or was it mainly...
There was, I can remember 2 different guys that started hauling water and it didn't go. Well, I think they had other jobs, so they couldn't just jump and go.
Yeah.
We could just jump and go. I had two boys and Dawn, And we were hauling whey too.
Yeah.
So 2 would haul water and 1 would haul the whey route.
I was going to ask about that. So you said Don bid on the whey contract.
Yeah,
and got that.
and he got that.
Do you know when that was? The year?
Oh my gosh, no.
Oh, it's okay. And
I
so,
don't remember.
What did that process involve? Was that just sort of pulling up to the cheese factory and?
Well, it took a lot to get it started and organized because he would go up and get whey, and their problem was they wouldn't let him know when they were going to have. I mean, he hauled every day,
Yeah.
but they'd call at midnight and say our tank's full. You're going to have to come up and get the whey.
Yeah.
And it was sort of a nuisance,
Well,
but you wanted to keep the business, so
Yeah.
you did it. So he'd go up and haul away at midnight. So
yeah, Dwayne.
are they having a meeting?
Yeah, what time's your meeting? 4. That'll be fine. She'll be there.
I'll be out at 4. Okay,
Okay,
that's
Dwayne,
my
fine.
son. They're having a bowl meeting at 4 o'clock.
All right.
But I'm still a owner.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but anyhow, I forget what I was talking about.
So the factory called midnight. He had to be there. Keep the business.
It got that they would just call any time, and he'd go up and haul and be fine. And then later on they'd call, we're filled, Well, then and also they were supposed to get the farmers that were supposed to get this whey, and they were charging the farmers for the whey. So anyhow, they wouldn't have enough of guys to deliver the whey to. So Dawn said, tell you what, why don't I get the farmers myself instead of you? Because he knew a lot of them. So Dawn went around and got the whole the young farmers himself. He set it up. And then finally they got something on the thing up there that they knew how much they were going to have a day to haul and stuff like that, that he could figure out who to take it to and what. Because you didn't want to, once you start it, you wanted to keep the guys in it.
Yeah.
And because they got, but Don, they had to set their own tanks up. At first he set up and then he quit doing that. And then they had to set their own tanks up, and he talked the cheese factory into giving it to the farmers. He said, they're doing you a big help by taking this, because if they didn't take it, they would have to pay Shippensburg or somebody to haul it out of there and put it in the sewer or something. So Don got it, that the farmers got it for nothing. And Dawn and them, the cheese plant, paid them for hauling it. So we got a check from them every month for hauling whey. It was according to how much you hauled.
Yeah. And the farmers used it as feed or fertilizer?
A feed.
Feed.
They fed it to their, some of them mixed it in their feed. And then some of it just put it in a trough and left them drink it.
A lot of protein.
But there's a couple, and they were big farmers. And boy, they didn't want to do without it. They said, did it ever save them buying certain feeds? That this way really blended in good and saved them a lot of money. So there was a couple farmers, man, he could hold them a couple load a day.
Now you said the farmers didn't have to pay the
Cheese, they didn't have to pay for the whey.
But did they pay Don to haul
No.
it there? No. Okay.
No, the cheese plant paid us to haul it.
Yeah, so that's a good deal for the farmers then.
That was a perfect deal for the farmer. Now, see, we're out of it, so I don't know if they have to pay anything now
Sure.
or not. But back then, and they were just getting started and everything. And Dawn said, I think them farmers doing you a big help by taking that.
Yeah.
And so the cheese plant agreed that, so anyhow, but that was really a really great thing that this guy said to Dawn about it, or we wouldn't even know anything about it. And Dawn went up and put a bid in, and he got it. They even took Dawn up to Belleville, where they were already set up there, to see how they were doing things. And they were really good to us, over the years that we hauled for them. The cheese plant was. But you had a truck up there running all day long. So, it was a good business. And the water business was really Now my grandkids say, boy, we shouldn't would have kept the water business. We'd have liked to bought it. Well, they were too young at the time. And we didn't want to, we just couldn't keep it going.
And so is that something that's still filling cisterns and pools? Or?
Well, he's still hauling water, but talking to a pool company, the one that, boy, we furnished all their water and we were really busy. They don't even call them anymore because they couldn't provide the service.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I know the first year they took over, I gave them all my books. I had all the people's addresses, phone numbers, everything. And I gave them all my books and everything. And he said they made as much the first year as we took in. Because all they had to do was, I called all the pool companies and told them to call them. And so and I don't know how they're doing now, but back then they did as good as we were doing because they walked right into it. Yeah. So it was a good business.
Mm. Yeah, I just didn't know if people still had cisterns that they relied on.
People do, but I doubt if there's as many around as there used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But and a lot of people used their cisterns, but then they bought drinking water.
Okay.
You know, but Plainfield, man, we hold pretty near every house down in Plainfield. But I think they have I don't know what they have down there now. That I don't know if they still have cisterns or not. But there were some places, man, we hold water constantly, you know. And it was okay.
Actually, how big were these trucks? Are these like what I think of as like a milk tanker today? Or?
That's what we ended up with. They were 4,000-gallon tanks. When I hauled water, I had a 2,000-gallon tank on the back of a truck.
Yeah.
It was, I don't know, it was a truck. You know, and when I hauled water, that's what I had. You had to jump up on the truck and open the lid to put the water in, and then go down, turn the water on. Then when it was full, get up and shut the lid. And then you had to go and pull all the hose off, and sometimes you had 100 feet of hose, and I wasn't fat then. Believe me, I was thin.
Well, you had to pull the motor to start it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you had to pull the motor to get it going.
Yeah.
And I had problems, a lot of problems, because I was a woman and dumb, and the motor got so bad that you could hardly get it started, and he didn't have time to look at it. So I prayed a lot when I was hauling water.
Now, at that time, did you need a CDL or?
At that time.
Did you get grandfathered in?
No. I had to go get bus license.
Okay.
But the truck, no, I never had to get special. But then they did get that you had to get CDL.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But when I was running, I didn't have to have CDL license.
So I know my father doesn't drives big plows. And I know he never had to actually take a certification test. He got grandfathered in with the CDL.
Yeah, well, and Dawn got too, you know. Mm-hmm. But I never. Well, when my daughter had her baby, I don't know. Well, I quit trucking. Yeah. And stayed home and kept her. And the boys they were only 16, I guess, when they started running the trucks. Uh-huh. Yeah. But, when I think about it today, I think, how in the world did I ever do that? How did I hold? And every place you went, you had to back in. Every place you went, you had to back. And at first I had a terrible time because I didn't, to use the mirrors, I had a terrible time. But then I got onto it. Now I could back in anywhere with mirrors. But, and I often say to him, how did I do that? But I did. My brothers didn't like it at all. They said, if he wants a truck driver, you tell him to hire one instead of you out there hauling water.
I was going to ask, is that something that you just never considered in terms of hiring, or maybe you did, hiring
Well, it was cheaper for me to haul it than hire.
But after the business got so big, did you ever consider hiring non-family, or?
We did it one time. We hauled a guy to haul water. Mm-hmm. Well, if he wanted to show up, he showed up, and if he didn't, he didn't. It got to be a hassle, and that was another reason we had to sell it, because you couldn't depend. And then we did have an older guy that hauled water, and I'll tell you what, when we sold the water out, he went and worked for that guy the same as he worked for us. Mm. Yeah, And he was a very dependable guy. He was retired, and he said, I don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon that you want me to go, I'll go. Because some of them didn't have their pools ready till then. And then they call about cisterns and stuff, and sometimes you didn't go till afternoon. Sometimes you went first thing in the morning. And he was a sweet guy that, he passed away with cancer now, but he was very dependable.
You said at the end, one of your sons had quit.
Yeah. He was, the whole three were in the business. My 2 boys and my husband were in the business. And I don't know how to say it, but anyhow, he decided to quit.
Yeah.
And he went and worked for Giants, so he drives for Giants now. But my other son stayed in, and then he's the one this windshield washer business, and boy, is it ever booming. He goes every day, but he goes to West Virginia and Bedford and up at Williamsport, and a local run for him is down to Lancaster. That's a local run for him.
And same type of truck, or
He has 4,000-gallon trucks?
At least 4.
Yeah.
Wow.
He has 3 trucks, and he has a guy that works for him. And but his son now, he's been helping. He went to college for high performance cars, and to help work on the trucks. And so I think he's going to take him into business with him.
now is that where does he get the windshield washer fluid?
He makes it.
Makes it.
He put tanks where he lives. I mean, he had to get all this certified and everything.
Yeah.
But he
Ethanol.
Yeah, he buys methanol and water. I don't know. He has big tanks at his place. They're all buried, and he mixes it himself.
Wow.
He has everything set up, the push buttons and whatever. And is it DER or DEP? I forget which. Comes around and inspects it and goes over everything with him.
Yeah.
So he's making out super good with that.
He makes a summer blend wash. And a
Yeah,
winter
he
blend.
has a summer blend and a winter blend.
Wow.
And he just keeps picking up new customers there. Again, it's service.
Yeah.
Like the one day I was down there visiting, and a guy called him. He has a lot of places. I won't tell you his name. He's well known. But anyhow, he called Dwayne. And he said, when are you coming to fill up my tank? And Dwayne said, well, you're not scheduled till Monday. And this was Friday evening. And he said, well, I ain't waiting till Monday. He said, you got to bring me. And Dwayne said, man, he said, he had it all planned out where he was going the next day with 2 trucks. And he said, I have it. Well, he didn't care what he had planned out. He needed windshield washer fluid. And if he didn't bring it, he'll look someplace else. And Dwayne said, all the time and all the good business I'd given him, and then he said that. So Dwayne said, okay. So he made other arrangements. And so then his son took the 3rd truck and hauled so he could go take this guy. But, sometimes you really get in the middle.
Now is this mainly like industrial customers, or?
It's all your car dealers, truck dealers, and he hauls to a lot of race guys,
Okay.
methanol. He hauls them, but it's all dealers. And
Yeah, so I'm guessing this isn't the stuff that I can go buy in like advanced auto parts.
No, he sets tanks in for all of them. And this one, did he say West Virginia or where, wanted 2 1,000-gallon tanks to set in for this. And then he's to see that they're kept. But I think Dwayne supplies the tanks too. And takes them there and sets them up and gets everything set up for the guy.
That's
with the pump and everything.
Does he still live locally, or?
Yeah, he lives right down here. Do you know where Messina's is, the Crossroad Restaurant? He lives right back of that road, Green Hill Road, first place in there.
Okay.
But you'd never know that he owns that business because everything's buried.
Yeah.
Now he has big truck garages that he backs the trucks in and stuff. But
You don't have to answer this, but I'm just interested. Do you know how was the family business structured? Was it like you and your husband owned all of it, or did your sons own a part of it too? Or?
well, whenever we had the trucking business,
Yeah.
all the money went in the same, and I gave them each a check every week, same amount of money every week I gave them. And then when our son left the business, he wanted so much money. And my husband, the other son, wasn't real happy about that. And he said, well, then I'm getting all this stuff appraised. And they said, okay. Well, it was appraised a lot lower than what he wanted, but they still gave him the money he wanted because it was family.
Yeah.
And, but it all, and my husband and I were always used to saving. I like to save. And so I wanted a savings account set up. Everything that I didn't give out to them every week, I wanted it to go in a savings account.
Yeah.
And if we had to buy a truck or buy parts or something, we had the money.
Yeah.
Well, the younger son wasn't for that, but the three of us were for it. So we did that. So anytime we had to buy anything, we had the money for it.
Yeah.
To buy it. And then when he quit, we gave him his share. And then when Dwayne, you know, him and Dawn divided stuff up. When Dwayne bought the whey route, and we got out of everything, all the trucking. So gave Dwayne so much, you know. But it all worked out, you know.
Yeah, because I know sometimes it can be difficult to sort of balance that.
Well, I gave them
family
all.
And money.
Yeah, the money. But and the younger one and his wife wanted the money. And we said, well, if we want to buy something, we want the money here to pay it. And they said, well, you can go borrow it. And we kept, well, why borrow it and pay interest when you can save it yourself?
Sure.
And so we saved it. And one year we bought 2 new trucks, and we had the money to pay for them. So, and I said we were always used to, when we had bought something, we had the money to pay for it. And we bought a lot of trucks. We had 7 trucks. And, but the Lord was always with us.
Yeah.
We give it all to the Lord, really, because, man, we prayed a lot, and he was always with us in everything that we did. But we worked hard, too.
Yeah.
And that's what got us where we are today.
Well, let's shift. So you said now I guess I'm guessing main business or maybe only business is the baseball field.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned earlier how the field came to be. Sort of. No, yeah.
Yeah, the boys didn't have no place to play. So Don said, well, build. Well, then it came along the first year, this one guy that wanted to run tournaments wanted lights put in. And Don said, okay, well, we'll get put in. And Dwayne, our son, said, well, Dad, I'd only get in one field because you ain't going to have people coming here that much to play under the lights. And Don said, when we set it up, we're going to set it up for the whole 4 fields and be prepared. And it's good we did, because in two years' time or something, we had all 4 fields and lights because we had that many players. Right now, I think they have 30-some teams, and they play their leagues that play through the week. Monday through Thursday night they play. Friday night they don't play. You get the fields and everything ready for the tournaments for the weekend. Then they have guys that come in and have the tournaments on the weekend. What?
How the school got involved. They played over there. The school.
Yeah, the schools used to play over there. The high schools. Oh, at times we'd have 1,500 people or more there.
Wow.
We'd have 7 or 8 buses at a time there. The high schools. Dwayne, we hauled water, and he hauled water to the Ellingsworth, which was the head coach in here at the high school at the time. And they got to talking about ball, and he said, well, could we use your fields? And Dwayne said, yeah. So we set it up for the schools to play out there. But then we got that we didn't have them anymore. It got to be a problem because they never knew exactly what nights they wanted to play, and they wanted the field shut down for our teams that night. And that was an obstacle for us, because when you got 30-some teams and you have teams set up, plays set up for every night, you can't miss too many, or boy, it really puts you behind.
Yeah.
So, and then the schools got their own fields. And so the schools didn't come out there anymore. We just had leagues and tournaments. But they have tournaments scheduled. Now, Dawn said that he had tournaments scheduled the middle of March. So they start the middle of March and go to the end of October.
Wow. Now, is this, when you say leagues, is this like adult softball, little league?
It's 16 and up.
16 and up.
Softball.
Okay.
Yeah. And we have men's and we have co-eds. Now, see, 2 years I haven't been out there, but we used to have like over 50. We'd had men out there at 90 years old playing ball. Yeah, and then we had teams that come in there, they were deaf. They couldn't hear. And it was so quiet that day, them playing ball, you know. Every now and then they could make a yell, but when they come up to order food at the concession stand, I made up tablets, and then they signed off what they wanted. And that's how we went, because we couldn't converse back and forth.
Yeah.
And but it was interesting, you know. We had all types, and at first when we played out there, my son had midget football, and he would bring them out there, and we played under the lights, midget football.
There are Mennonites and Amish.
Yeah, all the Amish. We have a lot of them playing out there.
Did they have their own league, or?
They have a guy that would bring them. They had a guy that brought them in a van.
But they played in the league with everyone else?
Yep, they played in our leagues, and they were super guys.
Tell them when they get married they can't.
Yeah, once they get married, then they ain't allowed to play. They can play with their church, but they ain't allowed to play. And this one team, to me, see, they were my kids.
Yeah.
And anyhow, it was so hot. And here, this one, they come in, they said, we're going to have to take him to the doctor because he overheated. And I said, you bring him in here. So I got ice water and I got a drink for him and I turned the fan on and everything, you know. I said, well, just let me work a little bit. Well, anyhow, he came out of it, and eventually he went back out and played. Well, we became super friends, you know.
Sure.
Well, anyhow, the guy that was the head of this, he come in and talked to me all the time. And he come up and he said, I'm not going to be able to play out here anymore. I said, why? Because I'm getting married. And I said, so you're not allowed to play? He said, no, I can come over and watch, but I ain't allowed to play anymore. Mm. So, but when they get married. But anyhow, it was funny because we'd have some of them, the Amish come from Lancaster.
Wow.
And they would change their clothes when they got there. Now, the guys were allowed to wear uniforms, but the girls weren't. They had dresses, but when they would change their clothes when they got there and had slacks and shorts on.
Oh, so the Amish teams were participating in the co-ed leagues
Yeah.
as well?
Mm-hmm. And a lot of the women, they played ball, but they wore their long dresses.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I always enjoyed the Amish, and they never fought or argued about anything. When a call was made, that was it. But boy, some of your other guys, they could really get...
Yeah, no, I play in a league in Carroll County, Maryland, where my wife is from, and it can get pretty heated.
Oh, yeah. Some of the guys really get... And it's always the umpire's fault, and or the other one's cheated, or this or that, you know. And Dwayne, see, when we first did it, Dwayne, my son, was the head of everything. Mm-hmm. Dwayne was always really good at getting along with everybody.
Yeah.
And he never... He treated everybody the same.
Yep.
And the guys got that they knew that. So when Dwayne said, this is the way it is, that's the way it was. And nobody argued with him because it didn't matter if you were a real close friend to him or if he didn't hardly know you. He treated you the same. Mm. And so we got along super out there because Dwayne was a good one to be in charge of it. But he's the main one that got the ball field going. Because he said, well, Dad, if you'd build a field, I can get the guys in. And boy, he did. Dwayne really... He was a super worker.
Now, are most of the teams from our local, like Newville, or do they come?
Oh no,
you said Lancaster for the
they
Amish.
come from all different states.
Really?
And on tournaments, they come clear from Carolina, New York, all different states. They come for tournaments, but it's really something in the evening that the teams came. Now, see, I'm not out there now, but back then. They would work like down at Middletown. They would live over the mountains somewhere where they'd come here and play ball, and then they would go home. So the way Dwayne set it up is they had a double header. So instead of coming twice a week, they only had come one night a week, and they had their double headers that night.
Yeah.
And then it was saving them running back and forth and stuff. So Dwayne set it up that they always had a double header. And that worked, and the guys really liked that. But then a lot of them, they lived out there, whether they played ball or not. They were out there every night, some of them.
You sure?
Yeah. And you really got to be really good friends with and even today, somebody goes, Mrs. Heishman, hi. And I'm like, you had to be a ball player because, you know, I don't recognize them.
Well, is there anyone, you mentioned the one Amish individual, but is there anyone else that really stands out to you over the years? Or?
Oh my, a couple of them. There's an umpire, Robert Hausfeld. He's been out there ever since we opened up. He even probably helped to put up some of the fence and stuff. I don't know. But he's still out there. He's a really, really nice guy. Now, he lives local and he's a truck driver.
Okay.
And but he umped. A lot of the umpires, and that was one. And, I forget some of their names. But the umpires were really, really nice guys,
yeah.
You know. And you had to have umpires that kept control. They were in control. Once they started the game, they were the boss. Yep. You know, if anybody come in and had any drink or acting or something, they could kick them out. And we kicked guys out of there. Oh, one night I looked out and there was two cops standing outside. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what they're doing. And anyhow, here this one guy went around the bases. When he came in the first base, they went over and took him. And I said, what happened? They said he was behind an alimony money, and they heard he was playing ball, so they came and got him. And then we had the one whole team out there was policemen, Carlisle, and got to know them really good. They play or. So I don't know if they're still out there or not, but they were when I was out there. Every year we had a state police team playing. And then we had accidents. We had a helicopter land out there and get a guy. He fell at first base and got hurt. And after they took him, we found out that he had broke his neck or back or something at one time. He shouldn't have been playing ball in the first place. But you don't know this. But we have them all sign that if anything happens, we're not responsible. So anyhow, so far, the Lord's really been with us out there, I'll tell you, because it has really proved out to be a good thing. And then, I don't know how long, I guess Saturday mornings we would let soccer come out there and play. But we sort of quit that because what would happen, we would have teams come in Saturday, and they wanted to start first thing in the morning. Well, these soccer kids were out there, and it just was fouling up our legs in tournaments.
Yeah.
So we cut them coming out too. I mean, we didn't charge them anything, and we thought it was nice to do that. But Dwayne said, Mom, you're going to have to give them up because it's killing our tournaments. So we did away with that. But so far, they're hard on the bleachers. When Big Spring High School got their new bleachers, we got some of their old ones, and that's what's out there in our ball field. So every now and then you got to put new planks on them and stuff and paint them. It seemed like pretty every other year you had to paint them. And but we had to do everything the cheaper way. You know, you weren't making big bunks. We spent a lot of money putting that place in out there.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot keeping it going because you got to buy Dynatex all the time, and there's always something needs fixed up. So, and we have a generator that runs the lights, no electric. So, we did that because when we first set it up, the PP&L came along and said, "Are you planning on having lights?" Well, we didn't know. We said maybe. Well, then they wanted to put a thing in for us out there in case you had lights, and I think it cost I think it was around $10,000 to set this all up, and then we had to pay $3,000 a year whether we used it or not. And we're like, well, we're not doing that because we don't even know if we're putting lights in.
Yeah.
This was all new to us. So we said, no, we ain't doing that. We then got to checking around, and we ended up getting a generator to run our lights. So we built a building and put a big generator in it, and that's how they run the lights. So here one night, lights went off. And we're like, oh man, what do we do? So we owned them trucks. They went in and took all the batteries out of the trucks and brought them and put in the generator. The batteries went bad. And put them in the generator, and that worked for that night. Then the next day we went and got all new batteries.
Wow.
And I remember changing the lights once. Dwayne, we rented the fire company in Carlisle. They come out with a big ladder, and Dwayne went up and changed the lights. So it's an interesting program. But it's getting at the age now it needs a lot. The fences needs some repair.
Yeah.
They're hard on the fences. They bang back against them. And they had concreted a lot of pools in, but they said it's at the point now they're going to have to concrete some more pools in and do some things. So, but I miss running the concession stand. I didn't want to give it up, but that was my husband's doing, is to give it up, because I enjoyed that. Every day I had something to look forward to.
Sure.
I'd go out there and work all day on that. So.
Is that something that do you still go out there just to see the games, or
Now and then I go out to watch a game, but that's not. My grandson plays, and when he plays, I'll go out and watch him. He still plays. But at one time, our whole family was out there, And when I was running the concession stand, my grandkids were out there all the time, And my granddaughter, Amanda, she's 32 now. She practically grew up with us because from 10 weeks old, I kept her. Her mom worked, and I kept her. So everywhere we went, she went along. So the concession stand, that kid worked out there from as soon as we put it in. She was out there helping with everything.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget one weekend here we had plans to go on a cruise, and we had 40-some teams coming. It was over Labor Day weekend.
Wow.
And we're like, what the heck are we going to do? And he said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And she wasn't very old at the time. She was in school, high school. And so Dwayne said, don't worry about it, Mama. I'll go over and Mandy and we'll get help and take care of it. So they called the other kids. So Dwayne said, Mama, I couldn't believe it. She stayed there at our house. He said, I get up early and go over thinking, well, I'll go over and help Mandy get everything. So till I get over there, she had everything set up and ready to go.
Goes back to that farmer's work ethic.
Yep. And she said, Grandma, I learned everything I know off of you.
Yeah.
But that kid was, and when we went home, she had the whole concession stand spotless, and my house she had cleaned and everything. So I said, boy, right now she's in Oklahoma City. She was teaching school. Mm-hmm. And she got an opportunity for a job in an office. It's setting up websites and workers on computers. Mm. And it's a lot more money than teaching school.
Yeah.
And she said, you know what, I'm going to try it this summer. If I like it, I'm quitting school because the kids are getting so bad today. You're not allowed to correct them. The principal ain't allowed to correct them. And so she loved the job. It's a lot more money. So she quit teaching school and started, what?
Tell them about when you sang at the church, all your kids, and you sang.
Oh, well, that's when we sang as a family.
Yeah.
When Tammy was 4 years old. Well, I played guitar.
This is your daughter, or?
Yeah, my daughter, when she was 4 years old. Well, she would sing in the church. I played guitar and she'd sing. Well, then other churches would call us. So as each kid came along, now they couldn't read, but I would teach them the songs by heart,
Sure.
And so we became the Heishman family out singing. So I played guitar, and then eventually my daughter got on the keyboard, and my son got on drums, and the other one, he played bass guitar. So we went around. Oh, when they had revivals in the wintertime, we were going putting there every night in churches singing. So, and Dwayne played the trumpet too. He played the trumpet and the bass guitar. And right now, this day, they're all on worship teams playing. Right. I thank the Lord for that every day. I said, if I never taught my kids anything, I got them into music, and they're all playing on worship teams today.
Did you go to First Presbyterian right down the street here?
Or? No. Let's see. When they were young, where did we go? I know. We went to First Church of God. And then they had problems, so we went down to Bloserville to United Methodist Church. And that minister, Reverend Quigley, he was a super. We loved that church. Well, then he retired, and they got So anyhow, we left that and went up to Green Springs, Brethren in Christ. And we went up there and the kids were on the worship team and everything, and they had problems, so the kids left, and they go out to that Carlisle Evangelical Free Church. Mm. And so Dawn and I were going out here to the First Church of God. But we changed a lot, went from church to church, and because we felt we weren't being led. So anyhow, we changed churches. But yeah, we sang We went out to Orbizoni and all different places singing. And we never took any money. We felt that was something nice to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we sang a lot. And then when the kids got married, things changed because everybody was going different directions. It was hard to get together to practice.
Yeah.
And last time we sang together as a family, our Church of God up there had a banquet. I think it was all women, I'm not sure. But anyhow, our family sang for that. But we had oodles of songs and we remembered all of them and how they went because you sang so often.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a good part of our lives. And then we went on lay witness missions too.
I'm wondering, what was your favorite song? Or can you choose just one?
Oh my. I don't know.
No.
I can't choose any favorite because there were so many that I really, really like.
Do you remember the first one or maybe the earliest one?
Well, Tammy would sing like You Are My Sunshine and all them kinds of songs. And then we would get in talent shows at the school. And that time Harper Valley PTA was you wouldn't know it, but it was a song. It was about schools, Harper Valley PTA.
Okay.
So anyhow, they were kidding about, why don't you teach Tammy that to sing at the talent show? So by gosh, I did, and she sang at the talent show. And then she was in a talent show at a fair somewhere and sang them Little Bit 'em Loud. And we sang mostly country gospel.
Okay.
Is what we like, the country gospel. And like the Johnny Cash gospel songs and all that kind. But I have a book on, we knew hundreds. But then when I try to think of a favorite, I'll tell you, one of my favorite was A Family of God. I'm so glad I'm how'd that go? That I'm a family of God.
I was asking you, sing a verse or two? Or?
No.
No? All right.
No, I ain't a good singer anymore. I used to sing with my daughter, but since I've gotten older, I don't sing. And
Goes away?
yeah. Now, if she was here and sang with me, I could sing. But by myself, I'm not a singer.
Okay.
No. But we had a lot of, I don't know, we had a lifetime of a lot of different adventures.
It sounds it. Mm-hmm. You, when we started this interview, you didn't think you'd have anything to mention.
No, I didn't. but they used to have fairs around Bloserville and Newville. Yeah. And we sang in the fair at Bloserville. And
that is something I wanted to ask. You mentioned when you were a child, your father would give you a penny per week.
Yeah.
And you'd spend that at the Bloserville fair.
Yeah.
What was the fair like when you were a kid, and maybe what's it like? All right, I don't know if it's still happening, but
well, I think they do about the same thing. And at Bloserville, you could throw balls, but then they really had neat prizes. You probably don't know that chalkware stuff they have. No. It's antiques nowadays, and very few people have it. But we thought it was wonderful to win one of them chalkware things. I used to have them, but I got rid of all of them. I don't have any more. I'd show them to you, but you threw balls and you spun the wheel. You did, and they had little kids' rides, which okay. I think we played games instead of. I don't think they had much to ride back then, and but we thought it was wonderful to go to the fair and have some money, because we didn't get back then. You didn't get allowances. You get paid for working, but we always wanted money to go to the fair.
Yeah.
So we had to take them weeds in. My dad counted every one of them. I'm like, oh my goodness, but we did.
Were there like food vendors, or did you skip those?
Yeah, no, they had, but I think mostly the women of the far company made the food, and they didn't have a lot of vendors back then. But then they used to have a fair up at, it's close to Messina's over there. Anthony's used to own that, and they had a fair over there. And it was just a little, but as kids, you thought it was wonderful to go to that stuff. Yeah, something to do, go. And that was the one thing that our dad did take us to the Bloserville fair and that fair up there. Mm-hmm.
one thing I always like to ask too is, I don't know how much. It sounds like you didn't really grow up in Newville.
No, I
I'm wondering
didn't.
sort of how much, and you mentioned Bloserville is relatively the same, but how much is sort of the, I guess, the area changed or maybe hasn't changed?
To me, Blosersville is about the same.
Yeah.
Newville, I guess it's changed. Now, he would know more about Newville than I would, but they had a theater at one time. Well, see, I don't remember that. It burnt. And I used to come, when I was a teenager, we'd come up to where the community center is now. They had skating, roller skating in there, and they had dances. And I used to come up to that, after I was old enough I was allowed to go away. And we'd come up to that, which they don't have that today. And then the doctors, there were 2 doctors in Newville, and they came to your house. Because I had Dr. Allwine. Dr. Allwine delivered me and delivered my whole 3 kids.
Wow.
And he came to the house.
Dr. Short.
Dr. Short, yeah, but I didn't have Dr. Short. I had Dr. Allwine. But Dr. Short came to the house and stuff too. But Dr. Allwine was really, and $5 I think is what it cost you when you went there, and he gave you a big bag of pills, and his nurse made you bunny and everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the last thing I have is there anything I should have asked you or that you want to mention, or?
I'll probably think of it after you leave.
Sure. Yeah.
But no, I don't know of anything.
Well, again, thank you so much for having me in your home and for talking with me.
I hope it was something that you thought was worthwhile.
I thought it was fantastic.
Oh,
So
okay.
thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you.